branding is what happens, is what people are saying when I'm not in the room. That's branding, right? So what's happening when you're not in those rooms? Can someone explain what you do? Can they think of you first and refer you? Can they think of you as the person that could help them in their next step of blank? That's branding.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Experimentation, what is going on? Your host, Ruben here. My goodness, this is overdue, and I wanted to take a special time to record this short episode to empower you to build your brand. Now, when I say that, I think that word brand gets thrown around loosely, so I do want to shed a little bit of light and some context as the importance behind it, what it can mean, why it doesn't need to be overwhelming, and how it's helped us in the lab, like be a game changer for us. But before I say that, I wanted to level set for a second and give a little bit of context. So this past episode, we just surpassed the 250 episode mark in our last episode. I know there's plenty in the queue, and I want to give you a little bit of I want to give a big thanks to my team at investedtalent.com. That's the team that makes our podcast possible. All of our experiments showcased. Part of the reason that I started a podcast, and I really want to encourage someone who's thought about it, who may be on the fence. There's different ways you can do this, but I do believe this is one of those untold secrets, or I don't know, the secret wonders of the digital marketing space. Having a podcast has completely changed my life. And there's no, as I think the millennials will say, no cap. That means this is not a lie. This is not an stated comment. It's done so exponentially, and there's a reason behind it, right? So, the reason is, this will tie back into the whole brand part, but the reason why I think a podcast is one of the most powerful tools that is underutilized, if not leveraged even more, is because it's really important for you to understand how the tool can be used, right? And one of the things I've been really big on lately is talking about when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? And so if you think of a podcast as just, there's different ways you can think about it. I'm going to define to you what a podcast means for me, right? So first of all, podcast allows me to create a relationship, not just with you, the listener, but also the person that I'm interviewing. But to give a little bit of context, when I first started my podcast, I had a limiting belief. And the limiting belief that you have, or the obstacle that you can overcome, usually will be the thing that unlocks all the um, I guess treasures on the other side, right? And so one of my blocks was, I started my podcast to get educated on real estate. And so the podcast was first used as a way to share my journey of what I was learning, documenting the process. I'm a big, I do believe that's the best way you can form a strong brand, is by not making yourself as the expert per se, because there's tons to learn. I don't even believe in being an expert. I believe in having an expertise, but being an expert to me is being an expert at learning is the best thing I can say. You want to be an expert at learning. But when I first started my podcast, it was to get in proximity to those I wanted to learn from, right? I wanted to educate myself. So in what better vehicle can you utilize to interview someone educate yourself on them. And then when you educate yourself, you're not just selfishly holding that conversation with, again, yourself. You're having that conversation with the people who want to listen alongside with you. And that alongside with you is, for me, is experimentation, which whoever's listening on the other side, which is the beauty of it, there's always more people that are listening than you can actually realize or even quantify from, because you don't always get, to see the numbers, or at least I don't pay attention to it much, but I hear it. Right, it echoes. I listened to your podcast, or I met you and so such and such. I was listening to your podcast. I'm like, wow, that is so powerful. And for me, that is the true icing on the cake. If you can have the ability to learn on the air, and when you're learning on the air, you're fostering a relationship with that person on the air, and then taking that a step back, and that conversation not only holds value to you, which you can re-listen to, and now you have a point of reference and you've built rapport, but it also serves others. To me, I'm all about win-win experiments, right? Like, you have to create win-win situations, and I do believe from the get-go, podcasting is one. Now let's go a little bit deeper, right? Why is podcasting? Why do people even say yes to podcasts? Well, people say yes to podcasts because everybody loves the opportunity to be able to tell their story, right? And it's actually very flattering. And not everyone gets as much media attention as you would think they do, especially the millionaire next door, the multimillionaire next door, or sometimes even the billionaire behind the scenes. And who cares? These are just numbers, right? It could be, you're something you're very passionate about, you're a nonprofit. It could be anything that humans love to talk about themselves. And because humans love to talk about themselves, giving somebody an opportunity to talk about themselves, talk about their journeys, talks about their pitfalls, talk about their success, talk about their challenges, well, it gives us, for us, these ingredients of success, these ingredients of where we're going to go to. And for me personally, when I interview someone, I want to go to the source to understand why they did certain things, why they thought of it this way, what allowed them to think that this was a great decision, what allowed them to go in a specific direction. So therefore, we're collecting data, and all this data is going to help us with our experiments, but it's not going to just help me. It's also going to help the listeners. It's also going to help you. And that is why it's so powerful, because you build rapport on the front end with the person that you're interviewing, which you create a relationship. Rapport turns into relationship. Relationships turn into deals. And then or collaborations or support or friendship, whatever it is, relationships. And then on the other end, I'm also fostering a relationship with the audience, because there's that ability for me to bring information to them or ask the kind of questions that I know they're thinking of, because I'm the avatar. So therefore, I'm serving myself and I'm serving others, and that builds a know, like, and trust brand. And people continue to listen when they continue to be served. So when we talk about, well, how does this turn into a brand? Well, that is a brand. A brand is what people say when you're not in the room. So if you have multiple great interviews with people, and I would like to think that's how people think about me, hopefully, is if they feel that that information is valuable to them, they will then value you as a person. But you don't have to be a crazy expert and have X amount of accolades next to your name if you're just simply bridging the gap, or bridging at least the education bridge that they have between what they're trying to get to, right? And so that's why I think podcasting is this untold, or maybe or overlooked, for those of us who are doing it. We understand the power, but from a distance, when you just look at a podcast, you see it as a podcast, but you don't understand what happens. I shouldn't say you don't understand. That sounds ridiculous. But few understand, or maybe sometimes you may, or someone may overlook the power that happens behind, on the front end, on the back end. Front end being the relationship that you're having with the person you're interviewing, and then on the back end, the community that you're building. And to me, that is a brand, because if you're valuable to the person that you interviewed and you have a relationship, and you're valuable to the person that you, or that is listening to you, and you have a relationship there, then really what you're fostered is a brand, where you've essentially built a brand that stems from value. And that I am so proud to, at least from what where I believe my lens is being able to offer, as being able to do that, because I've heard it. I've met people in person over this year. This year has really picked up, I feel. And we've also gotten think the last thing I was telling, the last episode I recorded on the sub 2 deal that came from someone I had on my podcast. So shout out to Ziana McIntyre, episode 215. She brought the deal to me. And she brought it to me because we had built a relationship on the air. Then we had seen each other at a conference. She actually even gave me a shout out. She used me as a case study in one of her talks, which then led to that. I went ahead and spoke to her group, her students, in one of her masterminds. I offered a lot of value to her as well when we were in the marketplace together in here in Atlanta. And it just went from there. And so you build rapport from a podcast and you continue to build from there. And it doesn't just stop at the podcast, and it shouldn't, but it's a great starting point. And part of it, again, I really want to reiterate that you're flattering somebody by taking the most important asset that you have in your day, which is your time, and giving it to them and letting them share their body of work with an audience that's willing to listen. And that's very powerful for people. So here's why I'm recording this, because if you're anything like me, my first episode, uh, it was not my first episode of the podcast. It was the first episode that I had to get out of my own way to interview someone that I didn't have any real estate at the time. And I believe my first guest was Vinny Chopra. If you go back and listen to that episode, I didn't own any real estate at the time. And this gentleman had 300 million assets under management. And I asked him, I'm like, I'd love for you to come on my podcast. And I didn't even have like a real podcast. Like before, I was just really just documenting the process, putting it on Anchor, and it was going up as episodes. But it was not the real thing, like with video and mic and all that stuff. And when I said that, I one of the things that I want to empower you is, or at least give you that salute, that just go and do it, is that very same thing that was holding me back ended up unlocking so many opportunities. Because then from there, I had Vinny Chopra on, then I had gosh, who did I have? I had a few notable people, like pretty much very close back to back, in the space. And it was a game changer for me. And it's funny because I'm blanking out now. I was thinking about it as we were talking to it. Let me do a little quick search here. It's been a while now. But yeah, I remember I had Rod Cleef. I guess it's interesting. It's showing up as after. That we thought I had Rod Cleef after. I guess, wow. So I had a few people. Evan Holiday, all those folks. Had some great individuals there in the lab. But what ended up happening is I started fostering a relationship. And when I started fostering relationship, it even allowed me to build an agency, because I had a gentleman that reached out to me and said, "Hey, I love what you're doing." Shout out to Jamie Gruber. Is like, can you do that for me? Because we used to repurpose content. At least I had a little team of VAs that were repurposing my content, because I was a big Gary Vaynerchuk guy. And so I love what you're doing with your brand. Can you do that for us? And at the time, we were not offering it as a service, but I said, of course we can, because that's what I do. I always dive first. I always just commit first. And I think one of the things is, I think when you start podcasting, and this is not to make an episode about podcasting, but I want to help you see how it ties together. You'll get a lot of opportunities to create relationships that then will lead to other opportunities. And for me, podcasting has been a tremendous tool for us to be able to build a brand. Experiment Nation, you've heard the word MTR, midterm rentals, as it is currently a hot topic and hot commodity right now, because again, there has been an increase in short-term rental regulations, and there also has been, let's face it, a slowdown in what we were experiencing a couple years back when it comes to bookings. So with that said, short-term rental operators are looking for alternative solutions to tap into the midterm rental space. However, there is a space, there is a sub niche of midterm rental insurance that I'm truly excited about, that I want to share with you, that the experience that we've had, the tremendous results we've been able to have, and that's the insurance midterm rental space, which is very different than your traditional midterm rentals. When you think of traditionally midterm rentals, you think of travel nurses. There is a space, midterm rental insurance space, that we've tapped in, where you need to be well connected with insurance and relocation specialists and companies, and understand the right type of asset required for you to be able to help these families. What's really important, that stands out the most, which you can get in what I'm about to offer you, is the understanding where to be found by these insurance companies, how to properly manage your calendar so that your listings are optimized so that they can find you, how to actually gain traction and build a relationship with these relocation insurance companies. I've put together an MTR insurance blueprint. That's double MT triple R insurance blueprint to cover these foundations after we've had success landing very large contracts on single family homes that literally 4x what we traditionally make in long-term rentals, and also gives us peace of mind because there's less turnover and 100% occupancy, because these contracts can start anywhere from 30 days to 3 months to 8 months, and range anywhere from, again, we've landed anywhere from $8,000 to $9,000 a month in per month on a single family home property, which our mortgages are typically around the 2,400 range, which then gives you a large spread of anywhere from 4 to 6K net on just one property. And this is why it's very hot right now. But people who haven't been in the lab with individuals like myself, like Jesse Vasquez and Dr. Rachel Gainsborough and Noble Crawford, don't have the foundations and don't know exactly where to start. And therefore, this is why I'm giving you guys a blueprint, the MTRR insurance blueprint. Go to the website, experimentrealestate.com, and get yourself a blueprint to completely change, or at least have a plan B if you're a short-term rental operator looking to maximize your occupancy and profitability. We'll see you on the other side. Another thing that you can do too is being the super connector, right? I had put down a meetup using Bigger Pockets, and this was way back in like maybe 2018, and I put it up, went to Starbucks, no one showed up, right? The first time was just my sister, so I was like, okay, cool, did it again, very little, like 1 or 2 people even, and then it picked up, and then we had a large meetup, and again, you don't have to be the expert, but you're connecting people together, and then what happens is things do come through you as the super connector. And so for me, when I think of building a brand, I think people think of building a brand of having like 1 million followers or 100,000 followers on like Instagram and Facebook, and having business cards and having a website. And I think it's none of those things. I think those things come along the way, and that's part of creating a digital blueprint, digital footprint, as I like to say, which I think you should have. There's tons of free um, social media platforms you should be leveraging, right? Facebook, tell people know what you're doing. Um, and I think it's really important that um I think it's really important that you start really focusing on that, because especially in this day and age now, well, yes, building a brand isn't just 100,000 followers and 10,000 or whatever it is they're going to do, but it is a digital footprint of how people can find you, and how you can be of value to them. So over time, yes, you should be building those, most definitely. But I think that's where people's minds go when they think of how to build a brand. They think like the 10x, when really it could be as simple as putting a meetup together. It could be as simple as adding value. And one other thing too that you should do, is do not be hesitant to ask for referrals. Do not be hesitant to ask for reviews, written reviews. Those go a long way, because then you can kind of showcase people. Here's what people are saying about me, and that matters when they're saying it, when it's written, holding on to those receipts, as I like to say, of your work. But I say that to say this. I wanted to bring things full circle because two things happened this week, right? Or at least within the month. So this month we just closed on a sub two deal. We're going to October. This is September. We close on that. That subject to deal came through uh essentially a relationship that was formed on a podcast, one of many, uh, which is again the power of having a brand, but also it came through. There's a few things that happened this month. There's a lot of things that happened this month, but part of it too is being very clear. Your brand needs to be very, in order to build a strong brand, you need to be very clear on what you do. Because if people don't know what you do and you're kind of all over the place, and then you do this on one side, then you do that, then you do this, and you do that, then people can't keep you top of mind when the opportunity comes knocking. The reason why this opportunity came knocking is because Ziana knew I was a midterm rental insurance expert in my marketplace. And when a deal came in that marketplace and it would make sense for my midterm rental play, she reached out to me. Another gentleman I reached out to, I told him exactly what I'm doing. Shout out to Jabbar. And he connected me with a subject to connection. Because, shout out to Alexis, is because I told him very specifically what it is that I'm looking for and who I'm looking to serve. Right. And so, and just for the record, what I'm looking to do is, or we specialize in midterm rental insurance properties, friendly properties, which are 4 to 5 bedrooms. We like them to be ready to go turnkey. We'll furnish them and then work directly with insurance company to house displaced families in Georgia, right? And our goal is to keep our portfolio 100% occupied, increase our profitability by working with these insurance companies, all while helping displaced families right now nationwide. Because we also launched a network where we're not just in Georgia. So with that being your elevator pitch or my elevator pitch, people can keep me top of mind when they hear the word midterm rentals, when they hear the word Georgia, or when they hear when they think of, or they hear a 4 or 5 bedroom home, they can put two and two together and be like, maybe this is something where I should reach out to Ruben, right? So the more it's very concise, the more people can come to you and keep you top of mind, right? You need, and this is why you need to be, you definitely should niche, right? Should niche down within a brand. Don't try to serve everybody, but work specifically, right? My agency repurpose content specifically and launch podcasts specifically for real estate investors, period, right? Not everybody, although we could, it doesn't, I'm not gonna think of you first if you serve everybody. I'm gonna think of the avatar that comes to me and asks a question, right? Just like a dentist doesn't do just, is not a physical therapist, and a dentist not that. No, you got an issue with your teeth, you go to the dentist, and this is the one I can refer you because I know that this is what he or she does, right? So I think that will serve you. And then having a platform such as like a podcast or a meetup or whatever it might be, a Zoom every Mondays to get all these people together. Right now, recently, mastermind, we've kind of restructured our mastermind. Bringing people together in itself is valuable, right? Because humans are always looking for community, right? A sense of belonging, like-minded individuals. I just went to a conference, Summit of Greatness, or Book Thinkers. Shout out to Nick Hutchinson too, which he kind of, this is another hack. He had a conference. He had a meetup scheduled right before the conference begins. Now you get like-minded people who may be overwhelmed by it being in a large group, come to a smaller group, connect with you, and then they kind of stick around for the weekend. Genius, right? So, whatever, hopefully I can plant a seed that will give you the permission to go and get it, right? Make that leap, that you're, whatever's holding you back, I promise, is the other treasure on the other side. And for me, I believe empower or branding is key, right? And the reason I was going with the Summit of Greatness, and I kind of stopped mid track because my mind goes 100 miles an hour, is I heard a lot of people there who's like, them attending a conference in itself changed their life, changed the value, the people that they met, the connections that they made. That in itself, you will forever be remembered as the person that brought so and so together, right? Said group together. So there's value. You don't have to be the value. You can be the gatekeeper, the creator of the value, by bringing people together. So for me, that goes a long way because people will not forget, will never forget how you made them feel, right? And that's the power of the brand too. And like I said, I'm just going to say it again. See, marketing, when we put out marketing is what we put out to the forefront of the marketplace, right? Right. I'm a midterm rental specialist. help displaced families. We relocate them in our furnished homes, and we increase our occupancy and profitability by 3 to 5x multiple compared to traditional rental. Right? That's kind of like what I'm putting out in the marketplace. Branding is what happens, is what people are saying when I'm not in the room. That's branding, right? So what's happening when you're not in those rooms? Can someone explain what you do? Can they think of you first and refer you? Can they think of you as the person that could help them in their next step of blank? That's branding, right? And so we really want to make sure that we're leveraging the vehicles that exist for us to be able to serve as many people as possible so that we can help as many people as possible and be of value to as many people as possible in a very respective niche. That is how you stay remembered. That is how you build a brand. And what I will say is, if I didn't take the leap of having that, by the way, which we all have imposter syndrome of, the question I was asking myself, which is kind of a crazy question when you think about it, is like, who am I to interview someone else when I don't have real estate? Who am I to interview a real estate investor when I don't own real estate? That is such a limited mindset. That's like saying, you know, who am I to help anyone? Like, how, if I'm not a specialist at that? Like, no one thinks that way, right? Right. That's like, if, imagine if a journalist thought that way, right? And they didn't, even some authors, right? And I think some people have that problem. Where like, oh well, how did you add value? Well, if I interviewed 100 people, right? Tim Ferriss, I didn't need to be those experts. If those 100 experts now have a book that's documented for them to learn from those experts, right? Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, isn't that what he did? So why do you need to be an expert? Why are you getting in your own way of, when I have this, when I have that, when things are perfect? Things are never perfect, right? But you need to start building your brand today, because we're into a place now where you can get highly rewarded for building a brand, and you should be, because there's that no like and trust factor. I recently learned that there's an in college sports there's a NLI scores. I hope I'm not butchering this. NLI. Oh, like, is it NLI or NLI? Oh, can a student athlete? Yeah. Yeah. So NLI is, let me see for a second. Let me see for a second what this is called. All right. So I found it, and it's called an NIL score. So in the NCAA, there's this thing called name, image, and likeness score, where college athletes get NIL compensation. And essentially, what we're saying, I mean, they're getting paid for their brand. And there's no reason you shouldn't get paid for your brand, or at least get compensated for having a brand, because it means you're adding value. And it's a name, image, and like score, which we all really do have, right? In reality, in this game, it's, do people like you? Do you have a name? What's your image in the marketplace? And that doesn't happen overnight, but you do build that. And so I think we should really be focusing on that, because um, the power of a brand allows you to. Another good book is A Key Person of Influence. You just get opportunities first, and more deals will flow your way. You'll get access to information, access to rooms, access to great conversation, access to data. And so it really serves you, because I always say it's not about you, but it's about who loses if you don't win. So what would it mean for you to not have a brand and to not be able to get those opportunities? What would it mean, just not just for you, but for others who depend on you, or others who could benefit from those relationships, right? How many people could you introduce because you're well connected in a network, because you have a strong brand, and therefore you get those opportunities, whether it's access, deals, speaking engagements, whatever it might be. And maybe that's not you, maybe that's not what you want to do, but still, it would serve you, because then when you have a strong network, you can help more people, right, get to what they want to get, right? And there's a saying out there, you can have anything in the world that you want if you are able to help as many people as possible. I might have butchered that. Pretty sure it's Zig Ziglar, right? You can have anything you want in the world if you're able to help as many people find what they need in the world. And that comes with a brand, that comes with a network, which are essentially the same thing. Network, brand, how the network sees you, how you see the network. So with that said, I just want to put that full circle, because we just launched our 250th episode, and from those episodes, I cannot tell you how many relationships we've made, how much education we've been able to share with the community. And this is kind of just a big kudos to, obviously, I want to thank the team, thank myself for staying committed, and then thank you for being able to listen. And while you're listening, um, if you're listening, you can do the same too, right? And whether real estate is your thing, whether it's any niche of any sort, you can also have that same kind of you can carve out your space and carve out those connections as you should, whether it's in your career, your personal life, your new endeavor, a passion project, a new hobby, new skill. It just serves you to be able to do that, whether it's through a podcast, whether it's through interviewing, whether it's through connecting with others, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a Zoom call, whatever it is. But it's certainly not just starting with a website. And maybe it's not just that. I think people think of branding and they think immediately that. I think it goes back to the fundamentals of connecting communities and being part of a community, and um, connecting others will go a long way. So with that said, thank you for being part of what I'm doing at Experimentation. Do the same. Do get out of your own way. If you're listening to this, um, create your own brand. Be the brand that you wish existed. Take pride in your brand, because in the end, your brand will uh, will be the one that opens up doors. I think with a brand, you can start a foundation, you can start a nonprofit, you can start a good cause that people will follow, because they like that. People invest in people, not just companies, the people behind. Just like you can build some amazing things with a brand, just like you see people switch courses and they go ahead and start new businesses and start new ventures, and because they have the people behind that will support it, and they have a strong brand. So why not do the same and capitalize? Excuse me. With that said, my job is done and yours has just begun. And thank you so much. I'm gonna have a boot camp. Because one of the things that I discovered this week was that a lot of people don't leverage the existing tools that they have, like your midterm rentals. Your Airbnb profile needs to speak to your avatar. If it's families or insurance companies, like the way we're doing it, Spotify, LinkedIn, same thing. People ask, how do you take someone off platform? Well, is your brand consistent across all platforms? Is your profile picture the same on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram? So people just are used to, oh, this is the face I should be looking for. Colors, background, lots of things that you can really capitalize on. So I am going to be hosting a boot camp, because I think people could definitely use the help, and give you guys all the gems that I have. And that's going to be launching on my page soon. I think the page we're going to use is experimentrealestate.com/hashtag MTR bootcamp. So that will be helpful to those who are in the midterm rental insurance space and who are looking to really build a brand locally, because that's what we're doing. We're being the go-to providers, and the way to do that is to show up a certain way, from optimization of your profiles to how to get more deals to how to send email campaigns, and again, stay top of mind, because if they don't know you, they can't flow you deals. That's what we're going to go over. And so I'm really excited to go over that. And so if you came this far and you're still listening, definitely make sure you want to tap into that. Make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com /# MTR bootcamp. And that will be essentially a branding / marketing and optimization of your brand online, your digital footprint. So, how do people find you? They type you into Google. What do they see? Are you even reachable? Because that's going to lead to more deals on the midterm rental insurance side. But overall, this episode was just about the power of building a brand, and it's not limited to just platforms. It's what I said. It's reaching out to people. It's fostering a relationship. It's educating a community, and part of that is my way to say also thank you for giving me the opportunity to um, to to allow you to, or give me the opportunity to have an opportunity to be able to share it with people who care. And I appreciate that, because I meet with you in person and virtually on Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. People are reaching out, and I really appreciate it. And I think I would empower anyone who's on that same path or who's not on that path yet to get on it. So with that said, experimentation, just like that, my job is done and yours has just begun, and we are out. Cheers. Experimentation, podcasting has changed the way we operate as real estate investors ourselves, and it can do the same for you. Podcasting has been the source of the masterclasses that we get thanks to the world-class real estate investors and practitioners and specialists that come into the lab from all realms, from short-term rentals to mid-term rentals to real estate syndications to even software as a service. Owners, founders, entrepreneurs have helped enrich our experiments by giving us the education, helping us build a network, and lastly, and most importantly, a brand association to open up multiple doors for our respective businesses. If you understand the power that podcasting can have, and you know that you need one for your brand, please, you can rely on our team. Investedtalent.com is my team and the team that helps this podcast, the Real Estate Experiment, become the fruition each and every single week to educate my community, build relationships on the air, and continue to build our brand. If you know that you need to do the same for your brand and you haven't pulled the trigger yet, maybe because you don't know how, our company, investedtalent.com, does the end-to-end from the time that you record, from the time that it is published, to even repurposing content on multiple social media platforms. That's what my team can do for you. Simply go to investedtalent.com and book a discovery call to see how my team can help you launch your podcast.